Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Mukesh Jain, and for those of you that do not know me, I serve as University Hospital's Chief Academic Officer, and I have the privilege of serving as your host for today's most special of events. So what is today's event all about? And in my view, there are really two principal purposes. First is to celebrate University Hospital's remarkable training legacy. Recall that this institution, built on the simple principle that the needy are most worthy, is now 155 years old. Over the years, University Hospital has trained thousands of individuals who have gone on to impact science and the practice of medicine. It is a remarkable legacy, and we will celebrate it today by honoring a distinguished scientist, leader, and alumnus, Dr. John Lewin, who will deliver the inaugural UH Alumni Healthcare Leadership Lecture. The second purpose is to celebrate the future. The newest members of the UH family, the trainees who started their journey just about 100 days ago today. Congratulations to all of you who have survived and undoubtedly thrived during these first 100 days. Please know that you provide a remarkable and energetic spirit within the four walls of the institution, and we're so pleased to have you as our colleagues. And I really hope that this event inspires all of you to think about how you might be able to change the landscape of science and medicine over the course of your own career. Our program today will include a very dynamic presentation on UH legacy by Dr. Michael DeGiorgia. This will be followed by reflections on physician leadership in the 21st century by Crystal Tomei, and finally the keynote address by John Lewin. But before we start, I'd like to invite our Chief Executive Officer, Dr. Cliff Megerian, to share his thoughts about our legacy. I know Dr. Megerian is passionate about UH's rich history of advancing medicine and training the next generation of physicians. And I also know he's been very much looking forward to this event. And as he makes his way to the podium, let me just review with you a bit about his background. Dr. Megerian is a distinguished surgeon scientist, internationally recognized for his expertise in the management of diverse otolaryngologic disorders. After graduating from the University of Michigan Medical School, he completed a residency in otolaryngology at University Hospitals and Case Western Reserve University, followed by research and clinical fellowships in otology and neurotology at Harvard Medical School, Mass Eye and Ear Infirmary. He joined the faculty of UH in 2002, where he co-founded the institution's cochlear implant program, grew it to be one of the largest in the world, while simultaneously leading a federally funded research program. Over the years, he has held many leadership roles within our organization. Chairman, Department of Otolaryngology, Head and Neck Surgery. President, UH Physician Services. President, UH Physician Network and System Institutes, and as of February 1, Chief Executive Officer of the Health System. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Megerian.
Thank you, Mukesh. It was great. Thank you, everybody. This is a dream I've always had, is to be standing before all of you in person and virtually on this event. I'm really honored to be here. This is a milestone event. The concept has been batted about for quite some time. The notion that we'd be able to begin creating a robust program to celebrate a rich legacy in training as highlighted by our distinguished alumni. So I'd first like to thank Mukesh Jain and his team, including E. Fritz, who's here today, for developing this comprehensive platform as it relates to Alumni Association, which is growing rapidly, and creating a network and communications ability of this, and then a lecture series that we're going to be seeing today. I'd also like to welcome our UH alumni, hopefully who are joining us. I heard we have close to 400 who are joining us today, as well as our first-year residents that we desperately wanted our first-year UH residents. Remember, at any given time, we have 1,100 trainees at UH residents and fellows, and we have about a quarter of them are first-year residents, and we want them to get a sneak peek into what their careers may turn into when our distinguished guest speaks today. In case you didn't know, I asked, and I'm happy that Mukesh reminded you that I'm an alumnus. I'm a product of this training program, and not only general surgery internship, but also otolaryngology. And again, at the time that I was here, I had no visions or ideas of ever winding up as a CEO. My goal was to be a competent surgeon. I believe I also wanted to be an innovator and perhaps make some significant contributions to my field, that I'm firmly convinced that my training here and the environment and the culture here allowed me to achieve that. And part of it was based upon my relationship with my fellow resident colleagues, many of them who've gone to distinguished careers, and one of them is here today. And one of the things I remember learning here at UH was the notion and the spirit of innovation, the idea that we are always to be better, we're always to be able to give better care, and that could be achieved with either better ways of interacting with our patients or better devices and innovations that we can create. And our innovators really through the years have transformed medicine. And again, I love that we have this Alumni Association slowly developing, because we can learn and remind ourselves of the innovators that have come before it. Remember, in the early 1900s, surgery was difficult. Whiskey and or ether was pretty much it. But the first institution in the country that really developed its own nitric oxide gas production and developed the principles of anesthesia was here at University Hospital. Another noted alumnus really developed the first infant formula, and the notion that formula other than can be given to supplement a child. Others have made tremendous contributions through the years. Our alumnus performing the removal, the first successful removal of a neoplasm of the heart, developing the tetanus vaccine, producing and ultimately demonstrating what modern CPR should be, performing the first successful reversal of a fatal heart attack using open heart massage. And let's not forget Dr. Spock. When many of us of this age group are little, our moms and dads read the book by Dr. Spock, who was one of our pediatricians. And let's fast forward to what we're facing today. And our UH innovation has been really, I think, helping, if you will, bring comfort and confidence to the nation, not just this region, as it deals with COVID. We have nearly 180 COVID-related clinical trials and research programs that are underway, including being Site 001 in the world for the remdesivir trial, which ultimately now is one of the most important therapeutics, being really one of the first in the Midwest to be asked by Pfizer to test the Pfizer vaccine, as well as the AstraZeneca vaccine, as well as the Lilly monoclonal antibody vaccine. And as Dan reminds me all the time, now under the leadership of Grace McComsey being the first to be developing the oral COVID therapeutic, first in the United States. These are really incredible if you think about these things emanating from this humble institution that goes back 155 years. And it is the residents, the trainees, and then the faculty, because many folks stay here, who are doing these things. We were the first to launch remote monitoring of patients using the Massimo device and came up with that concept, which is now going all around the world. So not only have these groundbreaking innovations occurred here at UH, but our residents and trainees, I think, have embraced the power of the training platform here, led by Dr. Susan Nederost, and thank you for all your contributions, Dr. Nederost, to make sure that the notion of observing that impacts can be made through creativity and innovation, and that is some of the culture that we have today. In fact, our speaker, Jonathan Lewin, who was just 2 years older than me in our residency training. He came in '86, I came in '88. We overlapped because of our love of head and neck radiology, and we became very close friends. Dr. Lewin, who is now the CEO and chairman of the board of Emory Healthcare, the most extensive and one of the most prestigious healthcare institutions in the United States, with 11 hospitals, including the Emory Clinic, as well as over 250 practice locations. The fact that, I get to see my colleague become CEO was certainly a motivation for me to maybe try it out myself a few years after he was named. So I'm honored to have Jonathan as really our first guest to educate us and motivate us by learning about his pathway to leadership. Jonathan, however, despite, in addition to being CEO, is a pioneer in interventional and intraoperative MR imaging, and was our go-to person when we had a question back in the day. And I think he also was amazing in that how kind and compassionate and willing to give of his time he was. He would easily volunteer hours of reviewing MRI films at our teaching programs, and anytime we had a question, it was never a burden for him to take time to review films in the imaging room to give us his opinion of a complex head and neck issue. And I think that is what embodies, hopefully, what we're trying to imbibe into our trainees, the notion of helping each other. And later today, he'll talk to us about his journey. And similarly, we have another UH alumnus coming very, very soon, Dr. Peter Agre, who was an internal medicine resident and also happens to be the 2003 Nobel laureate in chemistry and his discovery of channels, ion channels. He will be our third Research and Innovation Day speaker on November 5th. So more to come about UH alumni. And reflecting on our past, I think UH has grown and thrived over 155 years because we are different. We are different. What we believe is different. What we do is different. What we are is different. We believe in our brand being personalized, compassionate care where everyone is treated as an individual. And we are going to, hopefully under my leadership, get to the point where that is hermetically sealed into every interaction, whether it be with a doctor or a nurse, or it's a phone call, or it's a valet. We believe that we are the leaders and want to continue to lead in science and discoveries, similar to what we did during this pandemic. In other words, we were faced with something we didn't know was coming, but we stood up and we gave these things and these advances to our community and the nation. We are leaders in healthcare value as it relates to providing the highest value at the lowest cost possible in efforts of breaking the cycle of double-digit increases in the American economy spend on healthcare, which we know needs to be curtailed by limiting unnecessary care. And we are the hometown team. We are the only large health system in this region that's fully dedicated to this community and this community only. One of our core capabilities that we'll leverage as part of our strategy, as I mentioned, is scientific discovery. All of you are here today will be, I think, key in helping us advance the science of healthcare and learning how caring organizations do that, but also build the culture of compassion. This learning and caring culture will allow us to attract, I believe, retain, and continue to grow our base of exceedingly caring but clever physicians and caregivers. And one final thought I want to leave you with today is reflecting back on our differentiating factor, and that is the notion of personalized, compassionate care, or the so-called art of medicine. The true power to heal is half science, I believe, and half compassion. We know what it's like, how we are treated or our family is treated, and when the compassion and the kindness is blended in with the perfect amount of science, the outcomes are unbelievably different. At UH, our definition of a caregiver and the expectation for demonstrating compassionate care really extends to all of our employees. And I think this is also one of the learnings and the teachings that we as leaders want to impart upon our trainees, that is also vitally important to the product, which is making someone feel better. And if they feel better, it's easier for them to get better. We know from a person's perception of quality experience is highly influenced by the amount of satisfaction that's gleaned from his or her interactions. For example, and I get letters all the time, I get letters about some of the most amazing procedures that were done on patients who are writing to thank me and thank their caregivers for the fact that their transplant went flawlessly, or the fact that their bone marrow transplant was successful. But what they don't do is in that letter delineate the details of the surgical suture line or the details of the technique that the surgeon used. What typically they talk about after they say, I just had this procedure, is they spend paragraphs talking about how kind people were to them while they were here. And it's not limited to the physicians. It's everybody. And that is really, I think, the brand that differentiates and that drives home, I think, what we want to do. Every person in a person's journey, whether it be an intern, a resident, nurse, physician, valet, or the people who bring the meals, are something we are working on to be a circle of excellence as it relates to care. And I think compassion is how our trainees can work on differentiating themselves, because going out into the community, that is something that's highly desirable and really helps cure. So we all believe scientific discovery is the key to advancing innovation, but I think my argument is that by blending it like we do at university hospitals with kindness and compassion, that we are really doing something exceedingly different here. And now it is, I think the population is responding with their feet and with their ability to choose UH, and the numbers are growing significantly. Ultimately, as Maya Angelou said, it's not what you did or what you said, it's how you feel after the interaction, how you felt that went, and that's something that we focus on. So I think if I can give any advice to our trainees, it's remember every time you interact with a patient, you have the opportunity to create a memory and make what is a burdensome situation, which is the fear of their illness, be somewhat lightened by hope and by kindness. So thank you very much. I look forward to the presentations. It's an honor, Jonathan, for you to accept this invitation, and it's even doubly for me, knowing when both of us were just grunts in the trenches, to see you in this wonderful position, and I look forward to it. And now I turn it back to Mukesh.
Thanks very much, Cliff, for those just wonderful words and for your enthusiastic support of this entire event. Now, we're going to move into our program, and I'll just, for the audience, both here and virtually, just a notation, an administrative note. If you're in the audience here, there are 2 microphones in the front and back, so if you have questions, please use those. And of course, if you're watching virtually, please use the chat option, and we'll try to get through as many questions as possible, time permitting.